Ooh. Hello. Almost said good morning. I almost said, oh, it's fine. Somebody asked me to text them. Um, and I literally just remembered. What was I going to talk about? Today, okay, the discerning one, Two of Wands. I'm using with the Winds of the Sylph. The Shining Gale is a card that I see in this deck quite often. And I don't know if I've ever read it. I'm using the Revelation and Vitruvian editions of the Spirit Keeper's Tarot. Ooh, this one's looking rough. Y'all know how I had that in those interesting few days? Oh, it just got better. Okay. Today was interesting. It was a good day for me. It wasn't a good day for a lot of people at work, but I was like, I mean, I feel like going back to the energy before I forget it, there's also the thing about, I already forgot it. The dragon and the scorpion that came out when I used the deck of many fates and the deck of many things. About how the dragon was coming, but the dragon was actually coming to get rid of the scorpion. But the scorpion injects us with the fear. Hey, Skywatchers, how you doing? It is good morning somewhere. You are very correct about that. But it was like there was a thing with the vizier and the knight was the dragon. The sword of the knight was the breath of the dragon. And there was this thing about whatever that was, right? And then there was also the thing, I don't remember what the cards were, but it was when something happens and then later something else happens that ties back to that first thing. It's a combination of those two energies. And I guess, I mean, I did everything I could do. I knew a tower was going to come eventually, and a tower came, and I don't even think it was a tower, but it's definitely rumbling. And I'm like, ooh, girl, see, I didn't. The Shining Gale, Winds of the Self, be strategic. Appear to conform to the shape of that which is around you, but then assert yourself once you're at the center. That is how you advance quickly to the top. Launch the attack, but be cunning about it. Do not show your hand, do not reveal your plan. Just hasten your move and act progressively. Pictured here is a warrior general wielding the sword of Goljin. Goljin, I don't know. The text in red are the opening lines of the Diamond Sutra. Behind it, in imperial yellow, is the seal for invoking the Lady of the Ninth Heaven. The warrior general's helper spirit is the Sylph, who controls the winds and storms. The winged horse is named Victorum. Tempest, that's what it was. I was like, why is storms? Who controls the winds and storms? This been in the Midwest. Unfortunately and tragically, there was a tornado that swept through like 6 states. But like it's been like windstorms like for days. It's been good today. But that was interesting, the thing about like hastening, getting to the center of something and then expressing something, the winds and the storms. But it came out with, or after, treasure. Oh, synchronicity. Anyway, the Two of Wands, the discerning one. Oh, there's a guardian back there. See, there's this energy again. So in the Two of Wands, where's my pointing pen? In the Two of Wands, if Anon is watching, I don't know. For some reason, I just thought of you. Hi, if you're watching. You see the Guardian back here? Well, there's something behind the Guardian. And again, it's this energy of like the thing behind the thing, the plan beyond the plan, the force in charge beyond the forces that we would be able to perceive as in charge. And it's reminding me of one of those cards it's reminding me of the Genius Loci energy when I use the Enchanted Map Oracle. And there were all these little like pairs of eyes in the dark. It was in the Dragon's Lair, it was with goblins for some reason. And it's reminding me of the Fata Morgana and how the Fata Morgana is sort of like falling into place. And Miss Remy Healings did a Pisces reading. There were like two of them. And I remember with the one, the fingers of fire were thawing out this sort of reality encased in ice, and it was like falling into place. Um, but the Fata Morgana came out when I used the Magical Dimensions Oracle cards and activators. Fata Morgana energy was here for a minute. I don't know if it's necessarily watching the watcher, or maybe it's like the one that the watcher is watching on behalf of. Like that's the energy that sends the watcher to watch, to observe. And it's like the watcher is watching for a reason. But I don't know if the watcher itself has any like objective beyond just watching. Not objective. The word that came to mind was authority. It's like the watcher's job is just to watch. It's to inform. It's to observe. The decision is made elsewhere, whatever the decision is. Um, it feels like an opportunity to almost be in the reality before it becomes reality. But to do that, you have to be light as air and just as quick to move. That's why it's this Knight of Swords energy. Because it's still in the air, it hasn't necessarily grounded itself yet. Maybe. I don't know. But I was just thinking about it, and I feel like more often than not, but not all the time. Oh my gosh. Look, it's my best friend right now. It's my December card, the Two of Swords at the bottom of the deck. Who's at the top of the deck? The Six of Swords. Is the Six of Swords still at the bottom of this deck? Yeah. The Six of Swords was at the top of this deck when I pulled it out of the box. And then the last time I finished shuffling, it was at the bottom. This six, maybe it's because of the direction the ferryman is. Oh my gosh, look what's behind the Six of Swords in this deck. The Two of Swords was right behind the Six of Swords at the bottom of the deck. I get it. Anyway. Well, maybe not. Well, no, I don't know. I don't know anymore. Because for some reason, the Quester felt like it had an energy of returning. And the ferryman usually has an energy of departing. But now I'm not sure if the ferryman is also returning. Speaking of the moon, that's the reason why I came live. I was in a work meeting today, and somebody was like, "Is there a full moon?" They were like, "Was there a full moon last night?" Because everything is weird. My laptop wouldn't connect to the internet. I had to boot it up 3 times. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. After the meeting, I had another meeting an hour later. I walk into the office and the person's like, "Is there something like astrological going on or something? Because today is weird." And I was like, "Well, in the meeting earlier today, somebody asked if there was a full moon." So I looked it up and the full moon is tomorrow. It was that kind of day, apparently. Everybody was like, and that's why I was like, oh my gosh, maybe I should see like what's going on with the collective energies. But like I said, I was having a good day today. Today I was imperturbable. I already had my tower. I already worked through it. I was already able to resolve myself. So by the time today happened, I was good. Which I kind of sort of find more often than not. It wasn't a tower, but y'all saw me on here. I was like, oh, what do I do? Whatever. And that way, I feel like it's yes and no. The one behind the scenes, because that energy was also, but yeah, yeah. And the one behind, okay. I feel like it's applicable to say that they have the authority, but it isn't applicable in the way that it's like by position, yes, by action, not necessarily. Because I don't know if they necessarily do anything either. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? It's like, yeah, they have the authority, they have the ability to do whatever, but are they going to take the action or is anything going to happen? Depends. Where my phone? Oh, that's not my phone. I literally just, oh, it's right here. Okay. Was it really? Oh, wow. I haven't heard about the Mayan Galactic Calendar in a minute. Did I already shuffle it? Yeah, I did. The Necromancer, the Priestess. That's High Priestess and Moon energy. The High Priestess is the Moon. The Mason. Is that Earth and Lake or Water? That's Earth and Water. Um, she has the galactic tones on here. So that's a tone 7. If it focuses, it's not going to focus. But yeah, and it's so weird because it's like I don't know when it happened. What day was that? Wednesday. So let me check real quick. Because for 2 nights I had weird ish dreams. And I can't remember if it was after that was resolved or if it was during it being resolved. But after that, I haven't had the same theme of dream. Um, but my brain, I feel like my brain has been like super active at night. It's like it just won't stop. I'm like, oh my gosh, especially in that in between state. I don't remember any of it because I'm just like, I'm trying to go to sleep here. Excuse me. Hello. 1 second. Um, Hold up. Okay. So I had the dreams for 2 nights, and then the first night I didn't have the dream is when the thing happened in real life. And that's the day I was like, should I quit? Like, should I look for something else? Should I run away? Should I not challenge myself? I've showed up. I'm proud of me. Um, but anyway, and since then, I'm just like, okay, excuse me. I kind of want to do pull the enchanted map oracle cards, but I also kind of want to see just in general. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull 1 to 2 at the most cards from the Vitruvian edition. And then in the Revelation edition, I'm going to pull before and after the card that came out in the Vitruvian edition to get more information. I was going to work through some of the aspects from that I can more immediately see from where the planets were at approximately 9:30 Central, because that was in between the two meetings when people were like, is there something going on in the sky right now? But I guess just like in general, 2 card maximum, please. I've not been disappointed. Oh, it's face down. The burdened one, Saturn and Sagittarius at the bottom of the deck. Saturn and Sagittarius is interesting because that's Saturn in the territory of Jupiter. Saturn and Jupiter are both in Aquarius right now, but the conjunction should be broken, if not loose, and loosening because Jupiter is about to head into Pisces. Yeah, it's like 17 degrees away. So, like 17 and a half degrees between Saturn and Jupiter. And so it's interesting that that would be at the bottom of the deck. And it's Saturn focused. I don't, is there a Jupiter in Capricorn? 2, 3, 4 of Pentacles. Jupiter in Aquarius, 5, 6, 7 of Swords. What's the 6 of Swords? Let's see. I'm gonna go looking for it. Because I don't think. I was gonna say it's interesting that it's the Saturn side and not the Jupiter side. But it feels like there's some kind of interaction between Jupiter and Saturn that you would think would be over. Unless the 6 of Swords is Mercury in Aquarius. Let's see. Jupiter in Libra. Jupiter in Pisces. Jupiter in Leo. No. So it could be it's just like the only card. The Stronghold of the Flame is under the Ten of Wands at the bottom of the deck. The Burdened One and the Stronghold of the Flame. But the Stronghold of the Flame is the Herald of the Awakening. From the 10 to the page, it's the space where it's very awakening energy. But it's like when we go from the 10 to the page, the situation doesn't necessarily change because they both hold that energy of one. Right? 10 is a numerological one. And in the court system, typically, each person holds one. They all hold an ace. And it's like how far along, how well acquainted we are with the energy of that ace, I guess. Especially after the 10. We are. And so it is this at the cusp energy. The card that flipped over, this at the cusp energy. The card that flipped over is Jupiter and Capricorn. Saturn and Sagittarius, Jupiter and Capricorn. That is astrological mutual reception, question mark? I'm not quite sure. My relationship with astrology is interesting. More strained than not right now, honestly, but it's like when each is in the home sign of the other. And so there is a Jupiter in Capricorn. I'm glad this came out because I was like, it's interesting that it's Saturn and not Jupiter. But they're both here. So maybe it is an energy of like a difficulty in making that transition. And it's the space of the things that we want to hold to and carry with us, maybe, that makes it more difficult. Now, the Two of Pentacles, I was actually just thinking about in this deck the other day. Because, and it was probably that Wednesday, because the Two of Pentacles came out when I was doing the self reads. And it was an energy of like, there's the one that's holding the Two Pentacles, and then there's the larger ones in the back. And then after the experience I had on Wednesday, I was almost feeling, or I was questioning or thinking, if the sun and the moon in the back weren't mine. And if it's not a part of that Aksunade energy. It's what happens when light enters a space where there was only darkness. And as you can imagine, there's probably a sensitivity to light. I haven't even flipped through and looked at all these cards yet. It's just like, when it's dark in a room because maybe you're watching a movie and someone turns on the lights and it's like, oh, Aksunade. Where's this Two of Wands? Or Two of Cups? Or Two of Pentacles? Goodness. If this is at the top of the deck, that'd probably be a good sign. Here, oh, oof. Well. That's interesting because that card came out. It's another 10. So when I was shuffling the Revelation edition, the title card and the Eight of Swords were at the cut. And then it was the title card and the Ten of Wands. And I was like, oof. And then it was the title card and the Ten of Pentacles. And that's when I was like, oh. So the Two of Pentacles is in between the Tower and the Ten of Pentacles. And then here's the Two of Pentacles in this deck. So we go from the Nocturne to the Tension. And you can see it's what? North Node, South Node in this deck. There's lunar cycles on both of these. So what I do like is that at least one of these is coming into a solar energy. Instead of it being phases of the moon, it's like the sun. So there is an understanding of something in many phases that we have now that we didn't necessarily have before. But the other one remains just as unknown. And it's in between the Tower and the Dynasty. And what I like about the Dynasty is that was Corey. Hey, Steph, how are you doing? I think that was Corey last night. Was I live? Did I watch it live? Yeah. Right? I don't know. It was like before I went to bed or something. I don't remember what happened. I remember being up way later than I should have been and eating dinner way later than I should have been. It was Taco Bell. And I was like, oof. But I watched Corey, the Light Body Oracle. And he was talking about something. He had the Two of Swords in the Wild Unknown Tarot. And then Russ talked about the stream of gas coming out of the black hole at the center of our Milky Way. I feel like it's more that Aksunade energy, though. Because here, in the space of the void, a flower has grown. A flower's grown in the space of the void. And I talked about the space of the void recently. The last time I was live when I used the Tarot of Magical Correspondences. What was it about the void, though? The void was the place that, like, all of the other ones sort of, like, orbited around. It was how gravity and mass and things way down in the space-time continuum, which also goes back to that how time can flow backwards, but it's only, I don't know if it was observed or theorized, but it's like only on like really small levels of things that are seemingly of no consequence. And I thought about that earlier today, probably before I did this after I came home from work. And maybe that's what the Two of Pentacles energy is also about. And maybe that's also what the Tower is about. It's the scale. If the scale is too big, then it can't sort of be undone. I don't know. I know not. Hey, I thought about you yesterday. Last night. I was like, I wonder if Steph ever posted that video. And then I was like, I wonder if I should ask Steph about the video or if I should not ask Steph about the video because I don't want to put any pressure on Steph. So, but I'm glad you figured it out. I'm glad you figured it out. Oh, they're on opposite. Oh, see. I already shuffled these cards. I'm gonna pull before and after the tower, and I almost feel like I'm gonna dominoes this. I'm gonna pull before and after the tower in the Vitruvian edition, because it feels like this is an energy. It's either something is being destroyed or something is being created, and it feels like this don't help. Oh, I thought it was the Ten of Swords for a second. It's not. I actually pulled two cards after the tower because this is how I saw it. And of course, it's the Necromancer. This is how I saw it: the Moon, the Necromancer, the Tower, and the Chariot. But there was actually a card in between. And it's the Rogue, the Seven of Swords. And they're both the seven. So it's like either we move forward with this chariot energy or we continue to do whatever this is in the Seven of Swords. But I guess it's interesting because maybe in the distance of the tower, and the tower is 16, which is a seven. This is a few different things. 1 second. I am obviously distracted. Did I say distractive or distracted? No. Wait, when? I thought I was subscribed. I thought I was subscribed. Unless you posted it. Oh, I do see it. I opened up my phone and I saw it. But my brain read Everlong Mystic. I was like, oh, Eve just posted a video. But no, that's Steph. I see it. Big shifts are happening within the collective. Yeah, my brain was just like, I saw E and V and E, and my brain just went Erlong Mystic instead of Ning Sky. Excuse me. I did say distracted. Okay. Because I feel like the first thing I got about the Seven of Swords, it's like there's this energy where something needs to be trimmed. Hastening was the Knight of Swords. This is an energy of provocation. And I was very provoked by circumstances. It was like, so is the tower over or not? But I feel like in how in my life world, it was like, so are we done with this tower or not? Like, are you still like is this still a tower moment happening? Or is this just like, how major or minor of an inconvenience is this for you? Everything I talked about Wednesday. Because what I notice is the snail right there. You see the little snail? And I feel like dude is like going for the snail. And it's that energy with the Knight of Swords. It said something about hastening. At first, it was an energy of like something needs to be trimmed in order to for whatever. But then it kind of sort of felt like feeling safe, feeling that we're safe from some kind of tower moment, but it finds us anyway. It's like we think we've gotten out of the tower and it still comes for us. The tower, what is it? The bell tolls for you. You. Sorry. Cancer and Pisces. We're Scorpio. Now I got to look for the death card in the other deck, which I actually might. See, there's two towers in the moon in the necromancer. The chariot and the necromancer. Because what I looked at this vortex, and the reason why I went to the other deck to clarify is because it feels like there are pieces of the tower that are actually coming out of this vortex and like filling in the holes. I don't even know if you can see it, if it'll zoom in or not. There we go. And that's why I was like, I don't know if it feels like either way. It's like the potential lies either way. As the tower is destroyed, things can be sort of cleaned up by this interdimensional vacuum cleaner, or it's delivering and like reassembling this. Now, with these cards, it can kind of sort of again, the moon is here with the tower, maybe just as an unknown. This is Mars and Pisces. Mars and Pisces is interesting because that reminds me of when Mars was in Pisces and all the people who do astrology that I was watching at the time. So, like, nobody that I watch right now, honestly. Um, they were like, oh, Mars in Pisces, Neptune is all about illusion and delusion. So, when Mars is in Pisces, like, nothing is real, everything is fake, nothing that you do right now is actually going to matter because Mars is confused, Mars is lost. And then I'm flipping through my deck one day and I'm like, Mars and Pisces is the 10 of Cups. Like, so we're passing up on 10 of Cups energy right now? And that's what this is. Like, this is Mars and Pisces. Maybe not necessarily easy to navigate because, especially when it comes to the suit of Cups, the more people you have in the situation, the harder it's going to be to navigate by virtue of more pieces. And it doesn't necessarily have to be challenging or difficult. It's like, especially with different kinds of people, there are just things that you need to be aware of, right? And that's this energy. Then we end with Cancer and Aquarius. Cancer is ruled by the moon. The Seven of Swords is the moon in Aquarius. Then here's the moon right here. That's the tower. Here's the moon in the Necromancer. I just cut this deck to the moon. The Necromancer and the High Priestess, I think. The Priestess and the Necromancer. High Priestess energy, Moon energy. My head is starting to hurt. That's another thing that was happening. Like my head would just like hurt for days. It was like 2 days. And the first day, like this side of my head was hurting, and then the next day, like this side of my head was hurting. I was like, oh my gosh. I've been good, Steph. I mean, especially today. After last Friday? Question mark. What happened last Friday? Yeah. After last Friday and this Wednesday, I'm feeling really good. And like before the Wednesday before last Friday, I've been good. I have no clue, Steph. But I feel like how it made you feel might be a clue. I don't know. That's outside of the realm of stuff that Patrick knows. So that's like what all of this is. This is the Kanefa. When Reem did her birthday live, Kanefa came out. And there was something about the string. And I know Russ, I don't remember which video it was either, but I know Russ said something about Kanefa and the string. Um, but again, it's that Akasunare energy because it's life growing in a space that was void. And it's almost like that's why it's important to give the void a name or to know of the void. And that energy came up yesterday or the day before. The last time I was like a lot. It's like when everything else in Hades is mapped out, if you can't find it anywhere else, you know where it is. And if you're detailed enough about everything else, especially about the stuff in the vicinity of it, you can have a pretty decent idea, at least of the size of it. Now, when you start getting into like depth and layers, a map isn't necessarily going to tell you how many stories a building has or how low, like how many floors to the basement there are. You know what I mean? So it only gives you information in two directions. It doesn't give you information in any more than two, let alone like the third, right? Okay. So this is just like in general. See, but then back to this energy, it is a question of like, are we holding on to things that we need to let go of on one hand? And on the other hand, maybe it's are we letting go of things that we need to hold on to? And that's why I was just like effed up for a few days. Not effed up. But it's like I could feel things that I needed to hold on to and nurture and nourish and grow. But at the same time, there were things that I needed to release And the only space where all of that met was in me becoming who it is that I desire to be and stepping into the life that I desire to live. The things I needed to be let go of, the things that I needed to need to prove to myself that like I've worked through. And it's not to prove to myself in a way of proving, it's to prove to myself in a way of living, in a way of experiencing, in a way of when this happens again, or when I'm encountered with this situation, like I'm setting forth a different precedent for myself. I'm paving a new path. That was the Two of Wands that came out with that Knight of Swords, the discerning one. And I didn't talk about it, but because it felt like when that in that Two of Wands, the path was coming to a close. And it was like, well, I don't know if like that's a hill. And so like there's a dip, and with your vantage point, you can't see that the road continues and then goes wherever. It's like the opposite of moon energy. Well, actually it isn't. It is moon energy. In those decks where it's a winding road that eventually leads to the moon. Or we go beyond some other way. I guess with it being clarified by the Knight of Swords, there's a fool like energy. With the Knight of Swords, we sort of end up in the realm, we end up among the clouds in the Fata Morgana, lighter than air, or as light as air, or air becomes as solid as the ground is. But the fool is that moment when you're at the precipice and you're asked to jump. You don't have to. And either you sort of repeat the same or you complete the transition into something new. I mean, the Ten of Pentacles is on the other side of it. I didn't get into like any aspects, but that's fine. Aquarius moon, just when you have Aquarius moon? One of my best friends has an Aquarius moon and rising. I'm not sure. I feel like it could happen for many different reasons. Because I feel like I've heard someone talk about how they heard someone call them and woke them up out of their sleep. And then they noticed that, like, the baby, something was happening with the baby, or like something had caught on fire, or they noticed something. Like, there was something that they were able to react and respond to because they were woken up. And I feel like some people, it's like different, where it's like somebody or something letting you know. I don't know. That's why I was like, I have no clue. You're gonna go forward. Excuse me, ritual with string tomorrow. The moon is, it is going to be a full moon in Gemini. Maybe it's like dark lunar eclipse energy. Because it was supposed to be in Gemini. So it would have been solar eclipse in Sagittarius, new moon. Full moon, Gemini, lunar eclipse. Some solar eclipses come with a lunar eclipse before and after. Like the one the summer of 2019, I think. I'm pretty sure it was 2019. Because it was the full moon lunar eclipse in Gemini, and then the solar eclipse in Cancer, and then the full moon lunar eclipse in Capricorn. And so when we shifted from, or when we were shifting from North Node Cancer to North Node Gemini, there was a solar eclipse that had a full moon lunar eclipse on both ends of it that corresponded to both sort of energies. Now we're not having a lunar eclipse tomorrow. As far as I know, I don't think we are. And so it is. It's almost like we only got the Taurian half. We didn't get the Gemini part of it. And so there is a little bit of like maybe that energy is here, closing out the nodal axis of Gemini Sagittarius. And I thought, oh, I just had a thought that made me think of a thought I had before and I lost it because I kept talking. I don't know. It's gone. I'm going to look before and after the sun in both decks. No, I'm only going to look in this deck because this is the deck that has the moon out. No, I'm not. I'm not going to do it. Saturn and Jupiter. When everything was conjuncting Pluto, it felt like there was a story, astrological story. You're fine. You're fine, Steph. You're in Florida, aren't you? One of my coworkers, a relative of one of my coworkers, just went to Florida. I was just like, oh, she went to Florida. Um, what was it? I had it and then I lost it. That's been happening a lot. Like a lot. It just, I don't know. My focus is elsewhere in my life right now. So, I'll be all right. The collective will be all right. We'll be all right. But yeah, Gemini. It is a little bit of that. Okay, got you. Your moon is in Pisces. I feel like I knew that. Her moon. So that's what you meant when you said Aquarius moon just found. I know the moon was in Aquarius recently, and I knew that. I don't know why. I don't know what was happening when the moon was in Aquarius. What I also like about Mars. Oh wait, never mind. That was Pisces. I was like Neptune. Um. Oh, that's interesting. So I'm looking at the Archangel of Glory at the bottom. Behind the Archangel of Glory is the Two of Swords. Oh, well, the behind the Archangel of Glory is the Two of Swords. Oof. Again. And behind the Two of Swords is the Devil. With the Archangel of Mysteries. The Devil is the South Node. So, because there's the South Node, the glyph of the South Node and his horns. And then the South Node is this world. And we're making the transition from South Node to North Node. South Node is in Gemini. Sorry, it's in Sagittarius. So Saturn and Sagittarius would be sort of putting pressure on us potentially before the nodal axis shifts, pushing us into North Node and Gemini. But Gemini isn't here. Mercury isn't here. Virgo isn't here. Which doesn't, it is what it is. But the Archangel of Glory isn't blowing the trumpet. And so it reminded me of the Watcher, or the one that's not the one watching the Watcher, the one that the Watcher watches on behalf of. But then it felt like some kind of like, it's like it's you. Like you are the one that the Watcher is watching on behalf of, but it's the North Node version of you. And it comes into the space of all that you have the opportunity to become, in a way. And that's why I was like, oh, the Two of Swords is behind the Archangel of Glory, which makes sense. In a space of just like making decisions. Now, the Two of Swords in the Vitruvian edition, the Eye of God is prominent. And the Revelation edition, it's the sun, the moon, and then the material plane. Or that cube, I don't remember. And so, again, especially with the Archangel of Mysteries, it lends itself to that which we don't understand. And this card, we don't fully understand either one of these cycles. And this one, we more fully understand one with the sun here, but we still don't understand the other one with the moon and the phases of the moon. I almost put all these together. I got 2 separate decks. Can I put these together? This is a lot. I'll try. Yeah. I'll just put them all back. Let's see how well this works. Oh, well then, yeah. Oh my gosh, thank you. Are these the same size? Oh, they're slightly different. You see that? They're not exactly the same size. That was quick. The first ones out are Vitruvian. It's the Seven of Pentacles with 2 cards face down. The Gardener. I'm going to leave them face down. There's an energy. Is that not Awaz? Is that Awaz? The horse rune movement? It's like there's an energy of, and then there's the tree in the back. Something that we were working towards. Is that Saturn again? Saturn and Taurus. Uranus is in Taurus. Saturn and Uranus share rulership of Aquarius. Aquarius is where the moon was, with the Seven of Swords, as opposed to the Chariot. And this is another 7. But it's like there's a surprise, there's a twist, there's something that we don't expect that goes where we didn't necessarily think it would go. I had a nightmare the other day, and I woke myself up. My mom was like, "You should have kept dreaming." I was like, "Girl, what? No. Why?" I was like, because it was like weird vibes all over the place. And I was like, oh crap. Oh crap. Stuff is about to go down. I'm waking up. I'm not even dreaming this dream. Not doing it. Not doing it. And I woke up and Siri said it was 5:52. I think I'm missing a card. I think I heard it fly. Where did you go, card? Oh, here it is. Oh, okay. Awaken the Brilliance, Herald of the Flame. Now, in the Vitruvian edition, this was the Herald of Awakening. Now it's Awaken the Flame. Now we know what we're awakening. The cards that came out, the Wheel of Life, the Convalescent, and the Burdened. The Wheel of Life, the Convalescent, the Rogue, and the Burdened one. Now, we've already seen the Rogue and the Burdened one. They've already come out before. It's the Seven of Swords and the Ten of Wands in the Vitruvian edition. And I was just talking about that moon in Aquarius. But this time, it's with the Four of Swords and the Wheel of Fortune. That's interesting. It's this energy. Maybe it's just the Wheel of Fortune. There's an energy here. It's like someone or something trying to get us to understand something without telling it to us. And it's almost a high priestess energy. It's high priestess for me in the sense that, like, spirit, the divine, the universe can only communicate, the high priestess can only communicate. Okay, let's go back. Spirit, the divine, the universe can only communicate to us in ways that we understand. High priestess energy is when there's a language barrier where it's like we don't have the knowledge, information, experiences for that same energy to communicate something to us effectively. And so it's like the message gets lost in translation. And it's like by living more life, by having more experiences, by branching out, we broaden our vocabulary, we broaden our horizons, and now there are things. It's like you're playing charades. And it's like, yes, yes, like that's what I was saying, not this. Like, no, 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 no. And then it's like you keep going and you're going and going, and they're like, get off the thing. It's not that. Like, I don't know how many times and how many ways we can say no. And you just like going, going, going. And it's like that's why the high priestess is what the high priestess is in some instances, is because we don't have the capacity, the language to begin to understand whatever the message is. And so it's almost like that's why in the Wheel of Life, there's an energy of like trying to get us to see or learn something that we don't. It eventually becomes like I can show you better than I can tell you. With the Wheel of Life, it becomes that energy. Now, there's 11 swords here total in between two tens. The Wheel of Fortune, the Wheel of Life, which is Jupiter, and the burdened one, the Ten of Wands, which is Saturn and Sagittarius. Oh, that's what I was talking about. Scorpio moon and rising. I'm a Taurus moon and rising. Oh, your moon and rising opposes my moon and rising. Are you a first house moon and rising or a 12th house moon and rising? I'm a first house moon and rising. When everything was conjuncting Pluto and Capricorn, it felt like Saturn and Pluto had to have a conversation with Jupiter. And they had to be like, okay, Jupiter, we know that you love being the cool one, the fun one. We know you love being the one that everybody loves. but the way you just like hand stuff out isn't necessarily conducive to their growth. So maybe you can implement like a reward system. And it's like that's the cooperation between Saturn and Jupiter, or the compromise between Saturn and Jupiter, so that Jupiter doesn't take away from what Saturn has to give us or what Saturn has to teach us, but it falls on us to be present in the time of Saturn, so that that growth, expansion, whatever can happen. And that's, I feel like that's the Seven of Swords. That was the Seven of Swords that tries to get away from the Tower. And so maybe in some ways I don't want to say we miss out on the reward, but the Seven of Pentacles is here. And that goes back to that energy of like, what is done here will have ripples and ramifications and effects later on, but it's all based off of this. And if this never happens, there's nothing for those other things to use as a portal, to use as a gateway to like happen through. It's like immaculate conception happened, but immaculate conception isn't going to continue to happen. So you're not just going to get pregnant. Like the act of copulation has to happen for the act of maturation to happen, for the act of delivery to happen, for the act of maturation after the delivery to happen, for you to have a fully grown whatever. But if that copulation never happens, the seed is never fertilized. It doesn't matter how much time you wait. It doesn't matter if you mimic the same sort of pains, because the brain is good at doing that. The brain can be, we can live very psychosomatic experiences. But just because you're experiencing the symptoms of pregnancy, if that copulation didn't happen, if your egg didn't get fertilized, you're not pregnant. So then it almost becomes this energy of like, well, I endured all of this for nothing. And it's like, yeah, correct. The fertilization never happened. What did you expect? But the 11 swords in the middle, they supersede the 10 wands and the wheel of fortune. And it feels like there's an alchemy there. Just because it's the wheel of life. There's something about understanding. And that's what the wheel of life is trying to do. It's trying to deepen our understanding of certain things. But if we can't face those difficulties and challenges, then we never really fully see what the high priestess was trying to communicate to us through life, through an experience. Because without the experience, whatever the experience is, it's like it's difficult to get the words. It's like learning another language, right? It's probably going to be a challenge. And if you give up, then you never learn the language. So the communication never happens again. And maybe that's what the energy of the Seven of Pentacles is about. Awaken the brilliance. There's two face down revelation cards, or there's two face down Vitruvian cards. There's one face down revelation card. That was at the edge of the table when the Wheel of Life fell off, I think. The Wheel of Life was the one that fell off the table. Or is this the one I picked up? No, this is the one that fell off the table. Excuse me. Awaken the Brilliance. The Herald of Flame is the one that fell off the table. And I love that it's the Herald of the Flame. because the herald of the flame is the messenger of the fire realm. And we saw the archangel of glory, and the archangel of glory held the energy of the one that the watcher watches on behalf of. Here is the watcher of the archangel of glory. So there is something here. Again, it's the energy. It's like watchers watch for a reason. They watch for a purpose. They're not just like bored. And so they're like, oh, like, let's watch this person. But it's still like, it feels like maybe this is where that charades high priestess energy is coming from. Where it's like, we can't, like, it's like trying to communicate something and not having the words or common experiences to sort of go off of. And I was watching Bohemian Stars and Ocean Heart Readings, and she was talking about the universal like when a baby, a small child is doing something, you go stop, like don't do that. Like even Chino, he'll be doing something like like even the dog understands means like means like don't do that, stop doing that. You know what I mean? Who doesn't understand? I mean, maybe some people don't. It's not universal to everything, but even though I just said it's widely known to be a thing from my experience, of what is known to be a thing. So it might not be. But anyway. Oh, that reminds me of a book I just listened to. There was a princess who spoke a different language. There was a princess who thought there was only one language. She legitimately thought there was only one language. So when everyone else is talking, she was like, I thought everybody was trying to make me think I was crazy. That's why, and it's like, they were like, where did you, what, not where? They're like, why didn't you ever say anything? Or like, why didn't you ever speak? Why are you always like hidden? And she was like, well, I'm in this new place. I thought everybody's just like speaking whatever to make me think I'm crazy and to secretly do whatever. And it's like, no, like there's a reason why she had a hesitancy. And it took someone who spoke her language and the other language, who wasn't anybody that she came with, who wasn't like one of her people that came with her to this strange land. But going back to the domino effect, going back to the copulation, fertilization, germination, sprouting, maturation, the character that bridged her language and the new language held a significant position in the land that she came from. There was a journey that she made that put her in the position to know this strange language and to live the life that she lived. And it's like, because she made the journey, the it became the bridge. She became the bridge to, it's that domino thing, okay? And it's like, that's the space of the stuff that we don't know when we're asked to do something. And that's what I was thinking about. It's like my journey, especially when I started and even now, there are so many, just life in general, like I said. It's like there are so many times I did something, I looked up some information, and then later somebody needs to know it or something happens that builds off of that thing. And it's like there's no way to know it in the moment. And that's, it's not even necessarily the space of what life can teach us. I mean, I guess if the lesson or if what is being taught is to like in the moment show up, do whatever it is for you to do and don't like not. I mean, you can always not, But again, it doesn't set the precedent. It doesn't lay the foundation. Pluto and Capricorn, Saturn and Capricorn, Jupiter and Capricorn, Pallas, Athena and Capricorn, when everything was conjunct in Pluto before the conjunction happened in Aquarius, the great conjunction, and between Saturn and Jupiter and Aquarius. It's like Pluto was masterminding a bunch of stuff in Capricorn, or that's how it was like it was coming out. And one of the things was like this new Jupiter. That's like, not to say that we won't randomly get whatever, but maybe there's going to be a time where we actually have to like do some work to get a reward, to experience expansion in some way. Because boundless expansion, it's prone to rot. It's like when you have more food than you can eat. So some of the food, like the food that you don't eat, goes bad. It's overgrowth that can choke and strangle. And I guess there's something about this that's delicate in some way. I don't know. I ain't got to be on this forever. You think it is from your experience? Okay. That's what I was like. I was like, you know what? You're right. When she said that, I was like, you're right. Chino knows what it means. Does that mean that he listens? What is this? Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. The ivory shield, power and authority of water, with the contender, 5 of scepters, Saturn in Leo. I think Corey talked about that in the part of the reading that I watched, or the live I watched yesterday. Something about the sun being dark and the moon going light, but it's like with Saturn in Leo, even the moon. But that's the thing. That's the thing about Jupiter. That's interesting. Saturn gets a bad rap. Jupiter gets all the love. But if it wasn't for Saturn, and that goes back to when Cindy was on a break and then she came back with that one live on the couch and she was telling us about the program that she watched. If it wasn't for Saturn, Jupiter would swallow the entire solar system outside of the sun. Like there would be no Earth if it wasn't for Saturn balancing the gravitational pull of Jupiter. But we don't appreciate Saturn for how it contributes to the balance. But is that just not like capitalism, sort of in general, and how we sort of glorify and praise the more is more, and the more one has, the more they're worth, or the more whatever? And it's like, anyway. Speaking of, anyway. And again, it's like we don't see, we don't learn. Saturn is also, well, Jupiter is, as expansion, it's about, it can be higher education and philosophy. But I feel like Saturn, maybe more in the mercurial way, is also about learning. But it's learning through experience more personally. Jupiter is like secondhand learning. It's learning from what somebody else learned and all the people they learned whatever they learned from. Saturn, Mercury is about learning from experience. Like firsthand. The revelation card that was face down is the hallowed flame, the awakening, Ace of Scepters. The awakening and the herald of the flame, which is what? Awaken the brilliance. This is reminding me of this. But in this card, there's only one crossing the wand of interest. And this one, there's like four. The Four of Wands crossing the Ace. Easiest, most obviously, it's the comfort zone. It's how we feel when Jupiter is being the stereotypical Jupiter. And so it's like we live life just like the seasons. It's like when Jupiter is being Jupiter, that's spring, summer. When Saturn is being Saturn, that's fall, autumn, winter. And it's like we shut down. And sometimes in some degrees, in some ways, when it's the most important, we shut down. We're not a part. We're absent. We're not counted. We're not heard because we don't speak. We're not seen because we hold no presence. And so again, when the season changes, there was nothing done in preparation to sustain whatever that season will bring. And it is Saturn in Taurus, Saturn in Leo. So the Queen of Cups is coming out in between Saturn, Taurus, Saturn, Leo. That's fixed Saturnian energy. Here's Aquarius. The only one missing is Scorpio. Again, Scorpio is missing. But I feel like it's accurate. Scorpio is missing. There is no actual transformation. There is no actual death. There is no actual letting go. There's a perceived one. There's what we think we do. But then it's like when it comes time for the rebirth, when spring comes at the end of 9 months, when it's time to deliver the baby, it's like, what? I'm not pregnant? But I've been experiencing all the symptoms. What do you mean? And like, yeah, you had convinced yourself you were pregnant. So your brain made your body like bloat and go, because again, brains do that. Psychosomatic. Or what? Spiritual somatic. But in reality, on the earthly plane, in the physical, nothing happened. Nothing transpired. And so we experience more of the same, more or less. Not everything is going to be the same. I guess it's an energy of like, there's more, but it's locked behind the high priestess. Because it's like, how does she communicate it if we don't know the words or he? Wait, what? Stellium is 3 or more or 4 or more planets in the same sign or house. The 8th house is the scorpionic house of what? Death, sex, transformation, the occult, um, stuff like that. From the little bit of astrology that I know. But I don't have any stelliums to um unless we look at like asteroids and stuff, minor bodies. Then I have a stellium in Pisces because my black moon, so my sun, black moon, Lilith, and Mercury are all in Pisces, and then I think my Ceres might be in Pisces too. I'm not sure. I say Ceres because I love a hard C. I love hard C's in Latin. I do want to see or try to see what is the message of. Oh, that was quick. Oh, wow. That is the Empress. I thought it was the Empress. The bottom of the deck is the Initiate. The initiate. Eve! Hello, Eve. The initiate. Spirit in search of experience. Can you read that? Spirit in search of experience. The initiate is at the bottom of the deck. It's the Revelations initiate. And it's like, that's literally what this was about. The experiences. There are experiences that I never had and never would have had because of the fears that I had that kept me from having those experiences. And so the last 2 weeks for me have been like when the tower first came out, the tower, the seven of swords, the moon, and the chariot. Like, is this tower still going to be a tower? Like, are we still going to be so afraid of this that we don't even try? And I already had the experience to work through to get the answer. I mean, I had the experiences plus I did self reads. But even without the self reads, the answer would have still been no. The answer has been no. But I was procrastinating on some stuff. I mean, I eventually did it. It's like as long as we eventually do it, then everything else can do like line back up. But as long as this piece is missing, it's like the foundation isn't the foundation isn't strong enough to support the subsequent additions onto that foundation. And so it's like they never get built in the first place. Because sometimes you work with a good contractor and they're like, you know what? No. We're not even going to put our name anywhere near this. We're not going to bring a material. We're not going to lift a finger until this is right. And then you get the contractors that do it anyway. And then when everything collapses, it's like, you know what I mean? Not that great. But anyway, Steph posted a video. You're always on time, Everlong Mystic. Oh, she already said it. I saw Evening Sky and my brain just went Everlong Mystic. So the cards that came out, there are 2 Vitruvian cards and 1 Revelations card. This is the moon in Sagittarius. We've only seen Saturn in Sagittarius. So now the moon is moving into that space, and it's the 9 of Wands, Mellies. The Empress and the 9 of Wands. This is an energy that it's like it can't really do all that it's meant to do. It's like the Empress can't be the Empress because the Empress is doing whatever this lady's doing. The Revelations card is the 2 of Pentacles. The tension. Both the malaise and the tension by title, the malaise by action. It becomes a test of endurance, a test of stamina. But again, see, that's this is why I said it feels like the wheel of life is the high priestess, like sending us things. It's like she can't even use context clues because so much of what she has to say is unknown. It's not like I understand every word except like 3 in this sentence, like, and then I understand the next sentence and I understand the sentence before. So I have enough context to figure out what they mean. It's like the high priestess is putting us in position to get, again, the context so that the context clues make sense. And there's this energy. It's like it's trying to demystify this last remaining part that we don't understand. Like there's an energy of demystification, but you see how like complex it is. to try to get us to understand these different phases. That's why it's like, I feel like that's why it's like high priestess energy. That's why it's almost like out of reach, or it is out of reach. And it's like it's mystical AF. And it's like, okay, well, I don't understand what you're telling me to try to get me to understand that the thing that I don't know. And it's like you can explain it to me in a million different languages that I don't know, and I still won't know what you're talking about. So try the one I do know. And it's just like, me try, you try. Goodness. Maybe not. I don't know if high priestess energy is literally face palming, but there's a reason why Patrick ain't high priestess energy. Because Patrick just be like, you know what? They'll get it when they get it, and they won't when they don't. Eventually, it'll come a time and point in place where they either make the choice decision or they don't. That's pretty much where I am right now. But it's not for me to choose or decide anything for anybody except for me. I choose and decide how I navigate my own path and how I show up and if I show up and when I show up. And I'm learning now to also give thought to how I show up. And it's not that I didn't think about how I didn't, it's not that I didn't think about how I showed up before, it's that I didn't care. And some points, when I have the compassion, yeah, I care. But when my compassion runs dry and all the water in my chart is replaced with earth and fire and a little bit of air, it's like, yeah, the water's gone. Sorry, you drank all of it. The well is dry. That was me today. Today was a very the well is dry day. It was a very the well is dry day. And then somebody else was like, but it's Christmas. Like, we should be nice. They're having a rough day. And I'm like, this is the tower that I saw coming for them. And they wanted to do whatever. And it's not like, I'm not in a position to do whatever. And it's like, man, you really should have stepped up before. Then you wouldn't be struggling how you're struggling right now. This is not a self read, but I might be reading myself. This is more collective. Um, so at 9 o'clock today, I had a meeting and somebody was like, was there a full moon last night? Because today is just so weird. Like, my laptop wouldn't connect to the internet. I had to restart it 3 times. And then I went to a meeting at 10 o'clock an hour later. And the person, like, somebody was like, is there like something astrological happening right now? And I was like, somebody asked if it was a full moon yesterday, but the full moon is actually tomorrow. I looked it up after the meeting. Um, and then even somebody else was like, today, I felt like I was in the eye of the tower today because I was fine. I was cool. I was chill. I even had somebody like march up the stairs and try to talk to me some kind of way. And I was just going to let them. I was just like, I'll wait. I'll wait until you're done. And then I'll tell you how this happened and why it happened and why you're responsible. Because, when we go to you before, if you don't do anything, well, hey, guess what? The thing that we need you to do, still not done. And guess who it falls back on? Can't blame this one on us. It's all you, girl. You did this to yourself. And that's the mood I was in today. I was just like, but for everybody else, it was a rough day. For a lot of other people, it was a rough day. So I was like, maybe something is happening in the sky, and that's why I ended up pulling cards. And all the ego in me is like, I'm glad I went through, thought through, pulled through, worked through everything that I needed to work through within the past however many days, week, because it was last Friday and then Wednesday. So a week from last Friday, here I am, victorious. In a way. Could I be more humble? Probably. Will I be? No. Because I earned this one. I earned a lot of the stuff that I have, believe it or not. I feel like a lot of people would believe it. And I don't make it easy on myself. I don't search for things to make it easier. As much as I talk about being accountable for self and we set the precedent for things, like I do it in my real life. Like I'm not just saying one thing and then not doing it. Like that's how I've been progressing along my journey. And, I experience the rewards of that, and the liberation, the freedom, the shifts, the change, the movement, and working towards making this year as unexpected and unbelievable as I can. And there are things that I was just thinking about it. I was like, wow, there are things that I'm like comfortable with now that I was not. And like all those times, like if you watch some of the lives, I'll be like, Eve, I was brave today. I was courageous today, or I need to be brave. All of the things that I said I needed to be brave about, and I've been brave about. Some of them took time. One of them in particular took like a month longer than the other ones. It's in time. But as long as it happens, it's like almost like that's the thing about time, and how time can sort of reverse and small inconsequential matters. It's almost like as long as it eventually happens, the rest can be like retconned. The rest can be adjusted. It's like, oh, foundation done. Now we can do everything. The pieces in place. That's the alchemy, temperance, and the 8 of Wands. That's the missing ingredient. It's like, and that's what I decided. That's literally why I started my journey a little over 3 years ago now. 2018. Yeah, 2018 October. And then I went to London in November. Um, it was an amazing experience. I'm actually, hopefully, gonna be UK side next year in a few months, and more than a few months. But I'm gonna get to go back to the UK next year. I'm excited. Um, I kind of want to plan my vacation to be there for longer than a week, but we'll see. But I have at least a week. I'll be there next year. Um, but anyway, what was I talking about? And that's one of the things, I don't know. My relationship with my ego and my relationship with my shadow, it's like I'm comfortable with my relationship. So I don't have to make my ego anything that it isn't. I don't have to make my shadow anything that it isn't. I don't have to make my dark or my light anything that it isn't. And it took work. It was a process like everything else. And it's like, if I come off as egoic, I don't really care because I did the work. You know what I mean? I didn't do the work that I did to not experience the things that I'm now in a position to experience. And I didn't do all of that work to pretend like I'm not having the experience that I'm having. Either way, better or worse. And I'm not going to play small just because somebody else may or may not be in the same position. I made choices and decisions just like everybody else makes choices and decisions. And if it makes me egoic and if I'm full of it, so be it. I guess my Chiron in Leo is healed. I would say I'm kidding, but I don't know if I am. Yeah, I have a buddy, the one that I went to London with. He ended up moving to the UK, so I'm gonna go visit him. He's the one I went this summer when I went around the Lake Michigan, he's the one I went with. He's in the UK and she is in Canada. So I'm also going to have to go to Canada. I mean, there are other people in Canada that I'm going to have to see, obviously. Um, but I also got to go visit her. So I don't know when Canada is happening. And I think she's on like East Canada. Not even like, oh, if I drive like 6 to 7 hours north, like I'll see her. It's like you gotta go all the way out. Yeah, Remy is like the person that I most definitely like have to see. And I have an old buddy that's pretty close to where Remy is. I mean, I don't know Canadian geography, um, but I can see them both at the same time. Or I could say hi to him, but hang out with Remy. You know what I mean? Anyway, um, let me see. Let me see. Oh, you're all fire and earth. Been trying to water myself for years. I was all water and earth, but like bad earth, like super stubborn Taurus, like I'll go moon Taurus sometimes without, physical. Well, as I matured and got older, physical violence became less of a thing. So, I mean, they didn't ask me astrological questions, but they were like, is something going on with the moon? And she like, is it a full moon? And so actually, the people that I work with upstairs, so cool. Another one is a Pisces. So you got two Pisces and an Aquarius. So of course, around Halloween, they were talking about ghost stories and experiences they've had. I'm like, if I experience anything tonight, I'm blaming the both of you. And then somebody was talking about like the fourth kind. I was late to that conversation, but yeah, I was thinking about that today too. I was like, wow. So yeah, I was like, okay, I am where I am. And then we ended up talking about astrology, um, because we're all February and March. Um, and I was like, yeah, because when somebody was like, oh, I have a friend who's into it, I was like, I was really into astrology for a hot second. Now my relationship with astrology is rocky at best, most of the time. It's all right other times. But I was like, yeah, I know my whole chart because but mine would too. Mine would sing as well. I would probably like my voice would sing. I would probably like literally sing. Um, but anyway, I mean, but the Herald of the Flame has awakened the brilliance. So it's like it's no surprise that it's an active energy. It's an energy of participation. That's the King of Swords. This is why the King of Swords energy helps us with the High Priestess. In a way. In a way. But the King of Swords energy helps us to understand the High Priestess because that's the will of life. It's because the King of Swords will go into a situation with a certain expectation and then will experience something different. Now, a North Node Gemini King of Swords will use that as an opportunity to broaden himself. A South Node Sagittarius King of Swords would dismiss the experience, would go, oh, that's an outlier. That's a special case. That's a special scenario, and would continue to believe what they believe, and would continue on in a unidirectional sort of way. Very like, I'm a Pisces, and like, not hashtag not every Sagittarius, obviously, but like the difference between the masculine Sagittarian side of Jupiter and the feminine Piscean side of Jupiter that lends to Neptune, it's the directionality of expansion. Sagittarius is more unidirectional, and in its shadow, it can be blind to or dismiss everything that doesn't confirm and validate and reaffirm what it is that it already believes. But Pisces is open enough to allow for other things. And for an energy that isn't necessarily Pisces in that way, or Piscean in that way, or the other side of Jupiterian expansion in that way, it can be seen as vague because there is no real direction. Sometimes there is a real direction. It's seen as Neptunian, shrouded, foggy, thick with illusion, and that word that starts with the D, that's like illusion, because it's like it isn't necessarily as able to accommodate as a Piscean mind is. But at the same time, it's like if the further out you go, the less attached it is to like reality. In Sagittarius, like that's sort of the boon of Sagittarius, which is the bane of Pisces almost, is reality. I feel like Sagittarius is able to be more consistently grounded in reality, you know? So it's a balance. Two of Pentacles. You know what I mean? But that's where the nodal axis comes in. And so it's almost like, I guess in this, it's a question of like, how many times do we have to experience something before we start to pay attention to the experience of the thing? Or how many times does it have to sort of show up before we stop dismissing it? How many times does it have to happen until we take it seriously? Because the tower is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. With this Seven of Swords energy, this storm is moving. So if you don't move, eventually the storm is going to catch up to you. Even if you are moving, depending on what kind of storm it is, it might catch up to you. And that's one of the energies that that card had. It's like the storm catching up. It's like you're not necessarily out of the woods yet. Taurus, that's what it was. That's what I was thinking about. When I was going backwards through the zodiac, Taurus had a really, really rough message. And there was something, it was like with the Hermit. It's like there's an energy of something that you're procrastinating. All the while it's building up bigger and bigger and bigger. And if you procrastinate enough, it may be the case that when by the time it happens, it's going to be too big for you to handle or accommodate. It's going to be a tower beyond all towers. But it's something that you're going to be well aware of. It's something that you would have had many opportunities to work through, many opportunities to accept. Because that's step one, right? And so it's like take care of it before it becomes an even bigger problem. North Node Taurus, South Node Scorpio. Oof. Could be gorgeous. North Node Taurus, gorgeous. South Node Scorpio, oof. But again, like Scorpio is the one energy it's missing and it's not here. Pisces and Cancer showed up. Where's Scorpio? Taurus, Leo, and Aquarius showed up. Where's Scorpio? Scorpio's not with the water signs. Scorpio's not with the fixed signs. And it's interesting because Aries was missing. And we had to get to Aries through Scorpio. Scorpio is missing. So we might have to get to Scorpio through Aries. Or Mars. And Mars is the tower. I don't think I've seen anything in Aries. The discerning one, the Two of Wands, Mars and Aries came out with the Knight of Swords. We're Scorpio. Okay. I'm like so far behind. I saw congrats Eve and I'm like, oh, I'm behind. Where's my mouse? Where'd my mouse go? Oh, thank you, Steph. I'm just pulling cards. Yeah, fire was hard for me as a person. I think I'm too comfortable in fire now, but with like my Chiron and Leo and my North Node in Sagittarius, my Venus and Aries, it's like 17, 17, 19. It's a fairly tight fire trine in my chart. So that's why my Venus was locked up for so long. And I was actually afraid of my Venus because when I was a kid, I had a very short temper. And whenever I was too open, I feel like my temper, I wasn't able to like temper myself really. Now I'm older, so I can, you know what I mean? So it's less of an issue now. But for a while, it was like, oh, well, like if I'm too Venus, like, is the anger gonna come back? Is this stuff gonna come back? And it's like, no. There were things that I had to sort of grow and mature into. That was more or less where it was. I had to mature into it, um, and learn to like balance it and stuff like that, right? Okay. So it's funny, it wasn't until you got a grip on water that your spiritual takeoff happened. Air was easier to deal with or incorporate. Wait, what's going to be awesome? Oh, maybe something I was talking about. I don't remember. Your new baby nephew. There, I've worked with so many Sagittariuses. There have been 3 birthdays in the past week. And Remi's birthday was in the past week. And one of my old buddies' birthday was in the past week. His was the 11th. I was like, what is somebody else's birthday? What? Is everybody a Sag here? So the people upstairs in my department, 2 Pisces, an Aquarius, and a who knows what, maybe a Gemini. And then like in another department, Sag, Sag, Sag. I think there's a Libra in there. So the Libra is like, so here's our office, 2 Pisces and an Aquarius, and then like over here is the Libra. And then downstairs in this other office, it's a Sag, Sag. I don't know yet because it hasn't been her birthday. And then out, well, there was another Sag. I think it was back there, but that Sag is out doing other stuff right now because he was needed or whatever. So anyway, lots of Sages lately. And they're all cool, which I like. I'm experiencing the better side of Sagittarius. I have been since I met my Sagittarian best friend. Not that there was a less, if I think about it. The only thing, the thing that used to really get me about Sagittarius is that Pisces Sagittarius thing I was talking about. It's like, I feel like with Sagittarius, it felt like this. Like, this is us growing, this is us expanding, we're going, we're going. I guess I branch off and Sagittarius is still like this way. And I'm like, but we made it this far. Like, why can't you just like, and it's like, no. But that's the shadow side. It can be a shadow. Well, it's, I don't know. It's actually both the light and the shadow of Sagittarius, I would say. It's the light of Sagittarius when you're dealing with the shadow side of Pisces, and it's the shadow side of Sagittarius when you're dealing with the light side of Pisces. If you can balance and navigate them both in harmony and sync with that chariot energy, then it's all good. Then they compensate for each other. And that's like Libra, that was literally one person. But like whenever someone's like trying to make me realistic, or like whenever someone's like grounding me when I'm in like fantasy, that's when I would be like done. Or I would get mad. I'm like, Like, we were almost there. Just come with me to Neptune. Neptune is fun. You'll be fine. I'll take care of you. Just come to Neptune. Come to Neptune. And whenever anybody's like, no, I'm like, oh. Am I a siren? I'm just playing. But I'm like, come to Neptune. It's fun. You'll enjoy it. You'll have a good time. It'll expand your mind. Try Neptune. But anyway, he was supposed to be a Capricorn. I'm so far behind on the chat. He was supposed to be a Capricorn, but said, no way, I'm coming early. It's like, I think Sagittarius do it better. Sagittarius have more fun. Yeah, congrats. I know, was it Remy on her birthday live when she was talking about all the babies that have been born recently? Your Venus is in Leo, that line. Yeah, my Venus is in my 12th house. So she was like in deep freeze, isolation. His moon is void between Aquarius and Pisces. I don't know what that means. When is Raymond Patrick? I have no clue. Canada's been on my list of places to visit for over a decade now. It's just never happened. Not surprisingly, I mean, I just got my passport in 2018. I got my passport, and then a few months later, my friend was like, "Hey, I'm going to London in November. Do you want to come?" And I was like, "Yeah, I would love to." And that's how that happened, because he has family in London, and now again, like he's in the UK, so I'll probably visit all of them. Honestly, we might just go back to London because I'm like, I loved London. Um, London was like a big city that felt like a small town. Like London didn't feel as big as it. I mean, my experiences of big cities are very low. I haven't been to a lot of big cities. Um, feel like sometimes I live in the equivalent of a village when you talk about metropolitan experiences that people have had. But London was like big, but with a small town feeling. It felt homey. I loved it. Like I said, um, yeah. I remember one day we were walking wherever we were walking, and we passed by the aquarium, and there was some dude. He was like, "Hey, like I'm selling tickets to the aquarium for cheaper than they sell them down there at the aquarium." I was like, wait. It costs money to go to the aquarium. I'm good. There are plenty of fish in the sea, and the sea is free. So, who is that? The Rogue again. See, but in this Rogue card, first of all, there's no frog. The snail is still there. But there's a comet. The storm is cleared. I mean, there's that thing in the back. Who knows what is that, a watcher? I don't know. But the storm is cleared. Or is that the storm personified? Who knows? I most certainly don't. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Oh, we got judgment twice. So the bottom of the deck is the initiate, the demon, and apocalypse, all in Revelation. And behind that is the Seven of Wands, the dark horse, the one that you sort of like counted out, the underdog, who stands victorious by the end. And then two cards in the Vitruvian, Apocalypse, and the Priestess, 2 and 20. So that Apocalypse energy showed up twice. The first time was after the devil and before the dark horse. And then the high priestess is here again. Look at this. It's this energy. It's like we don't experience suffering to be defeated by it, or to be convinced that all we have to experience in life is suffering. From this space, we rise. And it's that changes like everything. That's what the high priestess has difficulty communicating. Because the high priestess is just like, here's an experience. And then you're like, what am I supposed to get from this? It's almost like if there's like some kind of sitcom TV show and someone's making like whatever, and they're like, oh my gosh, like, was that person dangerous? Like, are they gonna choke and stab me or something? Like, no, what are you talking about? It's like, well, you did this and this. And they're like, no, that's like, that was a clip. I saw it. I saw that video. It was an old show my dad was watching. There was this couple, I guess, and they had all these they had too many hidden clues and meanings and messages. And he was like, I think either the dude or the girl was like, well, why didn't you say that was whatever? I wouldn't have said it. And he was like, well, I did this and this and all these other things. I was like, oh, like, well, like, I thought you had a cold or whatever because you were sneezing all night. He was like, yeah, but also it was this. And he was like, and then something else. And like, well, I was jumping up and down. Like, that was our signal for this thing. And she was like, what? And then there was something, he was like, well, this is our signal for whatever. And she was like, no, this is our signal for whatever. That's where lines get crossed, messages get confused. And it's like the moon and the tower together again. Mars and Pisces. So we got to go through Mars to get Scorpio. Maybe that's the behind the scenes energy. We can't even, because like we could get to Scorpio through Aries, or we could get to Aries through Scorpio. But to get to Scorpio, we got to go to Mars. And then we have to navigate Mars in the Scorpionic way and instead of the Aries way. Or maybe both. It's like you got to go to the source. You got to go to Mars if you want Scorpio. The cousin, the brother, the sister sign ain't going to be able to do it for you. I just saw Scorpio. Here's death. Scorpio is in between the Three of Pentacles and the Ace of Pentacles. Scorpio is building the bridge. Scorpio is building the bridge. So it's like, ooh. Who knows how long until it'll be, oh, dang. To the point where you can just cross and not have to do anything. I mean, if you're looking for Scorpio, you might have to be well on your way to making that transition. I don't know if it'll necessarily just find you. But what do I know? I don't know anything. I really don't. The Archangel of Healing and the Star are together. I think the Star is the healer in this deck. So the Archangel of Healing and the healer. But it makes me think of what Aquarius got, Calc and Waterfall. Aquarius got a whole bunch of water energy when I did the runes that one time. And then an indissoluble energy. And it's like, it doesn't matter how much water you pour in this, it's not going to break down. It's not going to dissolve. It's designed to not do it. And again, it ended up unfolding into an energy of like, there's something that we're trying to do, but it hasn't been set up yet. It's like if you're trying to pour water out of the vase before you fill it up with water, there's no water to pour. If you're trying to harvest before you plant the seed, there's no crop to reap. If you're trying to give birth to a baby before conception and copulation, there's no fertilized egg to become the zygote, to become the fetus, to become the baby. The step one, step zero, really never happened type of energy. And it's like Aquarius is a sign like any other sign. Aquarius holds light, shadow, and everything just like Pisces. The age of Aquarius isn't going to be anything that the age of Pisces was or wasn't through sheer virtue of it being different. It's what we do with it. Because again, the age of Pisces could have been beautiful. Who would have ever thought that you give people so many different belief systems about loving and taking care of one another, and then people would use that to literally kill people? And it's like, in all of the love that you were told to do, where does it say kill people who don't believe the same way you do? Like, if I was a part of the divine, I'd be like, oh my gosh. Maybe that's why the high priestess gets frustrated. She's like, we said love and they're killing. I feel like we were pretty clear. I feel like it was pretty obvious, but somewhere along the way, humanity happened. And people just like went with it. It was like, yeah. I mean, I don't know. Anytime you have to go through Mars, you have to go through Mars to get to Scorpio. The last two cards, the Tower and Death. Scorpio is actually going to meet you at the Tower. Death is headed towards the Tower. And this is the thing that we try to run away from. So in running from the Tower, we run from the thing that transforms the situation in the first place. And you know where we stay? You know where we stay? In the Five of Pentacles, where these two things are separate. Oh, look at this. So before the Five of Pentacles, the Archangel of Mysteries is in between the Five and the Ten of Pentacles. This is the fertilized egg. That's the flower blooming in the void. Life and light in a space where it was thought that it couldn't exist. Aksunare. The Archangel of Mysteries is at the bottom of the deck over here with Devil energy and the Initiate. Again, it's the space of the things that we never even begin. We never even start for whatever Devil energy reason. So it always remains a mystery. But the Chariot is on the other side. That's where we go. We move. We go for it. It happens. It's more than just thinking about it. That is the miracle. That is the beauty. That is literally the Ten of Cups. That is Mars and Pisces. Because for all of the dreaming Pisces does, the doing, I don't know. Mars is the force that makes dreams into reality. But Mars and Pisces, oh, don't do anything. Everything is an illusion and a delusion and a distraction. Wait until Mars goes into Aries. Just pass up all of the Ten of Cups that is Mars and Pisces. Wait until Mars goes into Aries. Mars and Aries is the Two of Wands. Did anybody go anywhere? Maybe some people did. I don't know. I was just like, yeah, that was the beginning of me falling out with astrology. And mostly because of the people who I watched talk about astrology. And it's like 10 of Cups energy, and we're really just gonna. But again, that's the thing about the High Priestess. That's the thing about getting opportunities to reevaluate how we think, believe, analyze, make sense of everything. South Node Sagittarius, North Node Gemini. And it's like if we choose to continue to see things and interpret things in the same ways, we continue to keep ourselves from experiencing the light of some of these planets. Neptune isn't always illusion and trickery. Saturn isn't always bondage and repression and suppression. Jupiter isn't always great. Venus isn't always love. You know what I mean? Or like good love. Venus can be like self-obsessed and only caring about self and not really giving two hoots about anything and anybody else. Jupiter can be an energy of rot and decay, because for all of the expansion it does, it doesn't take care of what it has. Again, if Jupiter, astrologically, according to that one video that Cindy posted from that thing she said she watched, Saturn is the thing that keeps Jupiter from swallowing Earth. So anyway. Anyway. I'm so far behind in these. Maybe I should just stop trying. I'm hungry. You never got a passport? My grandma was like, I'm never leaving the country. I said, but there's a whole world out there. There's a whole world out there. She said, I like the world here. She was like, I haven't even seen all the US. I'm like, you can do both. You can see more of the US and more of other countries. Hello. She ain't going. You live somewhat near Houston and you don't like the city. Yeah. Like, I feel like big cities would give me like anxiety that I don't even necessarily have anywhere else. Like when we first landed in London, it was like 7 a.m. It was rush hour. I'm like, oh my gosh. I was just like in the way. And then I noticed, because I was trying to stay next to my buddy, right? And so I was standing next to him on the escalator, and I noticed people like walking around me, but there were so many people I didn't have time to move over to the right so that they could use the left to walk down. And I had like 2 people in like kind ways be like, stand to the right so we can pass on the left. And then I eventually made it over to the right so they could all go. I was like, oh my gosh. But after I went back to the place and I slept and then I woke up, I was like, oh, yeah, I love it. It's amazing. I've never been to Maine. The rain in Maine falls mostly over the ocean. I'm so hungry. Moon and Tower together give me apprehension. I feel like Moon and Tower together give me a feeling of, it's like things can work out better than you'd imagine. Because I feel like if things were as bad as you'd expect them to be, then it wouldn't be like the moon in the tower, because you'd expect it. You know what I mean? I feel like the moon hides partially. So then it's like, oh, like this is actually maybe going to work out for the better. What? Like it could be the energy of like when a tower becomes like the best thing that happened to you in your life because of what it made you available for, or because of what it taught you. And so even though it was dark in the moment, eventually you live enough life. It's like, oh, because that happened, now I can do this. And that is some of what perspective and perception allows us to experience, right? It's like if you always see something as the same thing, you never really give it the opportunity to give you anything else. And so it can never become any more. And that's the same is true for ourselves. If we see ourselves as one thing and we never allow ourselves to become any more or anything different, then we never do. And it's because we don't allow it. It's not because there isn't the potential or the capability. It's because we decided. So every time, I guess, maybe that's South Node, Sagittarius, North Node, Gemini. Every time we decide to see something the same way, or every time we choose to believe in whatever, it's like realizing how that limits whatever the thing is. I don't know. There we go. Finally, I'm trying to get a final card. Did this card not flip over? Did it seriously just jump up and go back in the deck? Yeah, it didn't even flip over. All right, final message. I'm done ranting. At the end of the day, we're going to make the choices and decisions that we make, and we're going to experience and live the life that we live. And your body can convince you that you're pregnant for 9 months, 10 months, a whole year, 5 years, and then you never give birth to the baby. And it's like, girl, well, I don't know if we're still necessarily doing immaculate conception. Ain't no seed ever touch you. So how did you think that this egg was fertilized? You never let your egg be fertilized. How do you think you're pregnant? Calm down, Mary. Not like the Mary, but like someone who thinks that they're Mary. And it's like, girl, yeah, no, not you. Immaculate conception ain't for you. Unless it is. Then, of course, by all means. You know what I mean? So the cards that came out, it's the Magus, the title card, and the Sharpshooter. The Magus, the title card, and the Sharpshooter. What I like about the title card is that it's so light. Whatever this is, it's too bright. This is the opposite of death energy in the way of the beam of light is pointing in the opposite direction. For death, it goes that way. This reminds me of the Eight of Pentacles and the Tarot of Dreams, I think. The Magus, divine powers of the mortal spirit. Eight of Scepters, the Sharpshooter. And it's interesting because last time the Sharpshooter came out with Temperance. I can't remember what Temperance is. The Angel, maybe? This time the Eight of Wands is coming out with the Magician. Emphasis on like active participation. The missing ingredient was you, more or less. But it's this energy. It's like, well, we're going to tell you that you're the missing ingredient, but we're not going to tell you why or how. That part you got to figure out. It's too bright. It's almost like the shadow is our ability to hold light. The shadow, the I guess the depth to which the shadow is healed and resolved is directly proportional to our capacity to hold light. And so to hold this much light and to not slow down the process, that's a lot. That's big. Because it's almost like every other time the light would break the vessel. It would break it. And then it was like it would plunge us into a dark night because the shadow, the darkness within self, it depends on the situation. But this is a dark night triggered by light. it's like the shadow, the self, wasn't healed enough to experience all of what the light had to offer. This is where self-sabotage comes in. This is where something is too good to be true. This is where we feel unworthy and undeserving. And so we ruin it. One in 18, which is the moon. And the moon doesn't reflect enough sunlight to replace the sun. The moon doesn't reflect enough sunlight to completely illuminate the entirety of the sky. The moon doesn't reflect enough sunlight to get at least all plants to photosynthesize. It's like if the moon was that powerful, then this like plants wouldn't be running the Calvin cycle, the Krebs cycle, the things that they do in the night. That's where they actually build all of the sugars that sustain themselves. In the daytime, they're too busy turning light into energy. At nighttime, they're using that energy to build the sugar. And that's the thing. That's the thing about seasons. That's the thing about Charis Demeter energy. If we can't let Persephone go, if every time Persephone leaves, or every time the season changes, everything stops growing, everything falls apart, how far are we going to get? She needs to learn to let her daughter go. And it goes back to the Saturn, like whenever we're in a Saturn cycle, if we shut down, whenever we're going through a tower, if we shut down and we don't take what life is giving us in those moments, what it's highlighting and illuminating to us, to the point where when it passes, it's like, well, what do we do with that information? When we come out of the darkness, do we build ourselves stronger? Or do we just go play in the light and pretend like it never happened? To the point where when it comes back, now we're less prepared. That's why we're the missing piece. It's the space of things that can't be done for us. Bottom of the deck is the demon battling the Typhon. And those are internal. Those are the shadows within self. And it's like, we're all human. We go through things. It's okay to not be okay. I would never say it's not okay to not be okay. But it is sometimes a question of like when we are okay or when we become more okay, do we do anything for ourselves to make us more okay next time or to help us be not as not okay next time? And it's all choice. This is the space where it's almost like literally any choice you make is valid, but not every choice you make is going to get you closer to where you want to be. And I remember I had a friend who I said, like, she was like, I'm doing all this for them. I'm covering shifts for everybody else. I'm working for everybody else. But when I need coverage, like, no one's stepping up to help me out. And I was like, if you're volunteering to do that for them, they don't have to do it for you. Should they? Probably. Would that be a all right, like a really awesome thing? Like, hey, you covered for me, I'll cover for you. Yeah. But do they have to? Are they obligated to? No. And it's valid. And she was like, she couldn't understand that, like, that being valid, like something being valid isn't um like a value, it's not a value judgment. It's not this is morally right or ethically right or logically right, and that is morally wrong, ethically wrong, logically wrong. Validity is not like a right or wrong thing. It's like, they're human, and all of the complexity with everything that humans are allowed and allotted to experience, that is within the set of experiences. It's valid. If they don't want to do it, they don't want to do it. If they have plans, if they're busy, they have plans and they're busy. If you didn't have an arrangement or an agreement with them at the start, the expectation was on you. You volunteered. They didn't make you do it. Now, if they promised that they would do it and they didn't have a reason to not uphold that promise, then that's when it's like, yeah. But it's like just because it's valid doesn't necessarily mean it's right. And just because it's not valid doesn't mean it's wrong, question mark. They're two completely different things. They're like apples and oranges. Both fruits, yeah, sure. But that's the thing about choice as well, and about consequence. I feel like choice is a double-edged sword in that way. But we live lives, some of us conditioned to make all kinds of choices and never experience any consequence. And that's why justice is kind of effed up in the like on the physical plane, not explicitly in justice systems, but how we sort of like operate with the energy of major arcana justice. Because we've in various systems to various degrees for different groups of people, we've broken choice and consequence, action and reaction, cause and effect. And there's a lot of earth that gets put on top of it, where it's like in an airway, it should be more cut and dry, and water, fire, because it's valid or it's invalid. It's like when I had jury duty, I learned the difference between innocent and not guilty. Just because someone is not guilty doesn't necessarily mean that they're innocent. They're just not guilty of what they're being charged with. Was there involvement? Maybe, probably. But did they do what you're charging them with? In my specific case scenario, it was like, no. Whatever they were charged with, we don't think they did. Were they involved? Probably. Were they like involved? Maybe not. Were they aware that it was happening? Probably. But it's like you can't say that someone was physically there and did something that they weren't physically there and doing. For that, not guilty. They weren't present. Oof, well. This is the card that came out. The title card. The High Priestess is at the bottom of the deck. So, I mean, what do I say about that? It's almost like as long as there are certain things that we continue to resist or not see, there will always be things that we don't understand or don't see. There's a lot of problems. Speaking of the justice system, there's a lot of problems that are very real problems that are like actual legitimate things. But as long as they're not seen, it's sort of like out of sight, out of mind, almost. Or like within an individual, it's like, well, I've never had that experience. Or, well, I don't think that. So therefore, I don't even know what card I would pull for that. Wait, what is Mayan-ish? I'm confused. I'm super late on that. And it's almost like this is the reason, or stuff like this is the reason that we have to be light as air with the shining winds that came out with the Two of Wands. It's like, to go further at this point, you got to be able to walk on clouds almost. North Node Gemini, I hope you do that though. And then North Node Taurus will have you experiencing the milk and honey that exists in the land of the clouds before it all sort of comes down and settles. And I guess in some aspect and way, it's very empowering. Because it's like, if you do it, it happens. If you don't, it might not. Or there are various degrees of happening. It's linked to participation. And maybe that's why the one behind the watcher has authority, but it doesn't like execute it, because it's not anything for it to do, it's everything for us to do, or to wait for. I think eventually it would happen. I mean, who knows when that'll happen, and who knows what it'll take for that to happen. Who knows what you'll experience in the meantime. I was thinking about that. Allow the world to be rewritten today. When I was at work, I walked into the door, I think. I crossed the threshold. And I was thinking about again how there are certain times when allow can be active. I feel like that's probably literally North Node Gemini, South Node Sagittarius. Allow the world to be rewritten. Because again, Sagittarius is kind of sort of, it's based and established upon tested hypotheses, but it doesn't necessarily allow for anything outside of the trajectory that it's already experienced. Gemini is all over the place. It's kind of Piscean in that way. I really appreciate Geminis, because if the zodiac didn't have Geminis, people would probably talk about Pisces like they talk about Gemini. So, as a Pisces Gemini, I thank you, because in many ways we are probably very similar. And in some ways we are not, which is what makes you you and me me. But anyway. Oh, the title card. Yeah, that was the in the beginning. Like the first cards that came out of the Revelation edition of the SKT. And it was the energy of the Fata Morgana being like this thing above sort of reality. And it's like the opportunity to experience it. But to experience it, we have to be able to ground like up here rather than grounding down here. And I guess it does go back to that. It was either the Two of Swords or the Two of Pentacles energy of, it goes back to the energy of the foundation too. It's like if we try to project ourselves up here, but our foundation is down here, where do you think the building is going to start? We build from the foundation up. So you're like, again, and it almost goes back to the energy of like expecting a baby to be delivered that was never conceived, because now we got to build from here all the way up here before we even sort of meet our own baseline. And then in that way we almost set ourselves up for disappointment, or we don't set ourselves up for an easier or more accessible success, because this is where our foundation is. And it's like we're trying to change the foundation from down here to up here and ground up here and start building from up here. But in an earth, like real life way, what does that look like? How does that happen? What needs to occur to us to get us to the point where we shift the foundation? And it's almost like you got to build up. And then once you reach a certain level, there's something that has to be done to make that the foundation to continue moving forward. And that's the thing about being lighter than air to experience the Fata Morgana. Maybe that's where alchemy comes in, or where mastery comes in, or where something comes in. Because it's like otherwise you sort of build up to it. Maybe we just build up to it and we adjust our expectations. I don't know. But it's in the beginning, like 2.5 hours ago. I don't know. Oh, I don't even know inking. I already put the deck away. Let's see. It's not hard to find. Oh, it's literally at the top of the deck. This. There's it's Merkabah. There's a Merkabah configuration, intertwined triangles. Is that a wind horn? Is that a wind horn in the middle? Unbound? You see the wind horn in that? That's an energy of the tension, the Two of Pentacles. It's like a pinched nerve. And that's keeping everything like from being able to relax. It's keeping it bound. It's the histone in the DNA. But the histones are in the DNA because if you constantly have like 60-foot long DNA, it gets inconvenient because we have that in every cell in our body. So it's compact when it's not needed to be read. And it's less compact when it's like being copied and we're going through replication or whatever. So again, it's almost like that South Node, Sagittarius, North Node, Gemini energy of like unclench. And this might be the part where I read myself. Well, it's been a journey of unclenching. Russell helped me a lot. He helped me work through my White World Bridger challenge of unclenching and releasing and realizing the miracle of what is the miracle of correspondence? Maybe, I don't know. But it's like when things don't go according to plan, or when things don't go the way that we thought they would, it actually opens up the potential for it to become something better, or for it to work out in a way far greater than our limited capacity to imagine. And maybe that's sort of like the high priestess. It's like, don't forget how limited you are. For all of your making and imagining, don't forget that there's always infinitely more. And so don't limit yourself. in that way. Like, allow for more. And that's a very passive allow too. There's the passive allow that it took me like days to get to. And it goes back to allow the world to be rewritten. It's like it's okay for you to do everything within your power, your right, and your ability to do, but don't limit yourself from the cooperation of the universe around you to build it into something even bigger. And maybe that's how we ground up there or set the foundation up there. That energy came out last year when I did one of the weekly releases. I think that was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure that was last year. It's this energy of like what we do when we're in a certain space of allowance. What we do is mirrored. So if we move an inch, there is a mile that's moved elsewhere, but it's done in conjunction with what we do. And it's like infinity times zero is zero. It doesn't matter how infinite the infinite is. If we're giving it nothing to sort of like work with or build off of, then there isn't much of anything that can kind of sort of be done. And I guess there does come a time and point where that shift and that change needs to happen because we hit because we hit a ceiling. We experience all that something has for us to experience. We complete one of those pentacles, the South Node one. And not only do we have to find a way to get into the North Node one and the Two of Pentacles, there's also a season of exploring the new cycles. But we can't explore the new cycles or delve into the new energies holding on to all of our perceptions of the past one because it limits it. That's when High Priestess face palms because it's like you don't have, it's like there isn't language that exists for me to communicate this to you, but I can try to show you. And if you're paying attention, hopefully you get what I'm trying to communicate. But again, it's like the language does not necessarily exist. So if you use the word you know, or if you use the experiences you know and that you have, if you use your current library, it doesn't really do anything to help bridge the gap of understanding. It's almost like it's going to be wrong by default. Because if you knew all the words, I would just communicate it plainly. Turn left here. It's like it's by the thing, and then like you do this other thing, and then eventually, and again, the thing that I love about being a vague Pisces is it allows life, the universe, the high priestess, the space to fill in the blanks and to communicate and to build upon it without as much restriction as a lot of the other zodiac energies would put on something. But again, conversely, with the shadow of Pisces, it's like if something doesn't adhere to the vision or the dream, then just like the shadow of Sagittarius, because it's all Jupiter. It's like it can ignore the reality. It can ignore these different pieces that don't fit in the box, just like Sagittarius. The thing that you don't like in somebody else is what you don't like in yourself. But again, that's why it's like they sort of have different ways of going about it. And it's Chariot energy. It's Two of Swords where the swords aren't instead of the swords being crossed, they create a channel or a pathway. They become the pillars, the columns that the high priestess sits in front of. That's why the Two of Swords, especially in the Spirit Keeper's Tarot, is my minor high priestess card. Because the cross swords become your version of like being in high priestess energy. But her pillars are behind you. So unless you're like double jointed and super flexible, I don't know if you can mimic that. But again, it's like this is your window of whatever. And when it's closed, it's like you can't see anything. Now we can. Anyway. I feel like the whole reading could have just been like the last 5 to 10 minutes of this, and I'm not up here like super whatever, but I am who I am, and I will change. I will change as the universe deems necessary, because there are things that I want. And I would be so bold as to say all of what I want was inaccessible to who I was. It's more accessible to who I am, and even more accessible to who I'm becoming. So I don't mind a tower here or a fear there. But then I do have to ask myself, is this fear big enough? Is this uncomfortability big enough? Is this tower great enough that I stop moving towards what it is that I want? Fortunately, the answer's always been no, or eventually becomes a no. I don't know. Anyway, that's what I got. I hope you all have a good whenever you see this. I hope you're acting in alignment to make all that you wish to experience your reality. And I legitimately mean that. I can be kind of whatever sometimes, but I legitimately mean it. Because if everybody's happy, the world is just a better place. Now, I don't have like people who are having a bad day trying to make me have their bad day when I'm having a not bad day. You know what I mean? Because people can be like that. It's like, well, if I'm in a crappy mood, then I'm going to make sure everybody else is. And it's like, well, you can keep that energy. I'll just sit here and look at you. Like, are you dying? I used to I used to say that. I used to say that to my buddy, my Libran friend who I'm gonna visit. And now he'll say it to me. He's like, are you done? You good? Are you done? And I'm like, no, I'm not done. That is a relationship that took a lot of work. It took a lot of work. Before him, whenever I reached the point, like, I guess that's when the Aquarius and my chart would kick in. After I cut ties with somebody, I'm done forever. I don't care. And like, will I do that Piscean thing or that human thing when I think about the past? Yeah. But am I going to think about the past enough to go back to it? No. And he was the first person that I like extended like a lot of grace to. And it was easy with him because we're from two completely different countries, two different sides of the world, two completely different cultural experiences. And like there was so much excuse that I didn't have to be, but it was easier to be like, he didn't know or he doesn't know. But I'm also the type of person where it's like, I understand that there are differences, but if you're not going to listen to me when I talk to you, there's no point. If you're not going to hear me when I speak, there's no point. And if I'm not going to hear and listen to you when you speak again, there's no point. There's no room for connection to be made where understanding can't be exchanged or developed or grown. And in some ways, he broke me because I was like, wow, like, what if all the other people that I just like cut off and never looked back, like what if like I was wrong to do that, but like I was like I did it for good reason. I give many chances. I don't believe in singular reasoning, so it's not just one thing. If I make that choice and decision, it's at least quite a few things. It took a lot of work, and I grew a lot because of it. I grew a lot because of it, and he grew a lot because of it. And I was like, how come everybody else gets to experience the fruits of the labor that I'm putting into our friendship, and I don't get any of it? Like, you're nicer to everybody else. But the reason why I continue to put work and effort into our friendship, into our relationship, is because I could tell that, oh, I might get emotional. I am getting emotional. Um, I could tell that the willingness to learn was there. I wasn't the only person putting work into that friendship. I wasn't the only person banging my head against a wall trying to understand somebody else. Eventually, we got there. Also, I was in a very dark place. I was in the darkest place of my life when we met. So that didn't help. Um, but yeah, sometimes we still kind of butt heads a little bit. But anyway, emotions past. I'm just playing. Ah, thank you, Eve. I'll just trim it. I'll just trim it to the last like half hour, maybe 20 minutes. So the first 2.5 hours, 2 hours and 40 minutes of this video. No, I'll leave it all up. I'll put in the description box though. Go to like 2 hours and 30 minutes or in the title. Um, but yeah, and I'm glad because it's like I've expanded a lot through him. I remember he told me, I was like, if you could give me, this was when I was working through my relationship anxiety. After I realized I had relationship anxiety, I was like, if you could give me any like relationship dating advice, what would it be? And his advice to me was to be more flexible. And my response was no. I'm flexible enough. I'm flexible where I can be flexible, and I'm not flexible where I can't be. Since then, since that conversation, I have learned to be more flexible. I feel like and again, for me, it blows my mind because I never necessarily saw myself as judgmental, analytical, observant, maybe, but to the point of like judging somebody, I was like, no. But then in reality, kind of. But at the same time, I still don't believe I have to subject myself to experiencing things that I don't want to experience, especially people who aren't going to reciprocate in furthering and developing understanding or whatever. Like, I got to sit here and just like let you or tolerate you being a garbage person. Like, no, go find somebody else. Life is too short. Anyway, see, now I can't even use the last 10 minutes. Darn it, I'm going to have to chop this end of it off. Anyway, yeah, I don't have any Virgo in my chart unless in Vedic. In Vedic astrology, my Jupiter is retrograde in Virgo. But besides that, no Virgo. But in some ways, maybe Pisces and Virgo can be two different sides of the same coin. I do have a lot. So I have Taurus. I have two Taurus placements and two Capricorn placements in my chart. Um, and my guiding planet is Saturn. I guess that your guiding planet is a planet behind your sun. So my sun is 10 degrees Pisces and my Saturn is like 23 degrees Aquarius. And they're both in the 11th house. My 11th house that is ruled by Aquarius. So It's a combination of Earth and Aquarius in my chart, maybe. I don't know. All right, I'm tired and hungry. So thank you, Eve and Steph and Skywalktress, for being here. It's been a time, hopefully, maybe enjoyable in some way. Um, Maybe the energy behind the watcher. Now, this isn't the energy behind the energy behind the energy, but maybe the energy behind the watcher, again, it's us, or the future version of us, or the version of ourselves that we're becoming. There are things that we ask for, things that we manifest in our lives that require at some point active participation. And that's the alchemy. That is the Eight of Wands. We are the missing piece. We are the missing ingredient. We are what's been out of the equation for a minute, distracted internally and externally by all kinds of things. And we've seen how a lot of us handle conversations or space with the self when there isn't, or when there's less distraction externally. At first, it was like cute. It was cool to have all this time to ourselves. We could do all the projects around the house that we wanted to do, for those of us who didn't have to continue. But after a certain amount of time, it's like, well, when all the projects are done and when we really got to face self, that's when we run into issues. Did it change? Did we find our like other things to distract ourselves with? That's a you question. You lived your life. I didn't live your life. Maybe your knowledge expanded in a way that now you can hear the high priestess. And in that way it reminds me of what some would argue that it's more enjoyable the more chili peppers there are. And for those people, I would say there is a part of me that agrees. I guess. Um, I forgot what I was saying. The language of the high priestess and seeing things a different Reem. How she was talking about like going through her shadow work, and like the recent extent especially gave her a capacity to understand the high priestess in ways that just the light wasn't able to. And it's like the more we experience in all ways, the more ways something can be communicated to us. So even if we do get a certain understanding in one way, if it's rephrased, reworded, if it comes from a different direction, maybe there's something that we'll see from that perspective, from that phraseology, from that symbol, that image, that lining up of things that we didn't necessarily get before. And it's not even sometimes necessarily that one is more right than the other. Maybe sometimes we get a more complete understanding. That's the phases of the moon. We see it from multiple sides, angles, and aspects. And the more vantage points we can see it from, the greater our truth. It's like the story of the person who had a hat that was half red and half green. And then two people are arguing over whether the hat is red or green. And it's like, in reality, well, if we are reasoning, logical adults, and if we can have a conversation instead of an argument, maybe between the two of us, we can come to the understanding that the hat is both red and green, you know? And that's where humanity really dropped the ball in the age of Pisces, because they chose to fight. Even though most of them said, basically like don't. But that's the Tower of Babel. That's literally the story of the Tower of Babel. Humanity built a tower that was too high, and the only thing that had to be done to stop them from building the tower was to introduce different languages. Now no one can talk to each other, so they can't understand each other. That becoming what the world can be in so many ways today. Like the knowledge wasn't removed, the expertise wasn't removed, they weren't stricken dumb. It's like, oh, just like if you get them to speak a different language, they'll take care of themselves, essentially. And it's like, was it really that easy? Is it still that easy for us to not accomplish? And I don't know if it was necessarily bad or if it was too easy or what, but it's just like, wow, like that's all it took. All it took was Italian and German and Korean and French and Russian and English. And, maybe those languages weren't what they were then. But it's like, that's literally all. That's literally it. Like, they can still mime, they can still charade. They have literally, I don't know if like their experiences were removed. I don't know. Anyway. I don't need to make, now I'm here. Now it's 3 hours and 1 minute. It was just 2.5 hours. The Yanni and Laurel thing, yeah. I didn't hear Laurel. It took me a long time to hear one of them. I had to like force my ear to hear it, to pick it up. I had to stretch my register just to begin to hear it. I think first it was like Yorel, 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 and then it was like Yanni. I think I heard Laurel first and then Yanni. And then like the Yorel was like, it was real Yorel for a long time. And then I could hear both. But anyway, turmeric with pipeline is really good for dogs. I think Russ was talking about that yesterday. Something about, is that, I don't even know how to pronounce that. And his autocorrected to pipeline too. I was like in bed just watching it on TV. I can't type on my TV, but you could never hear Yanni. Yeah, it took me a long time. I had to like listen to it over and over and over to eventually find the space. It's almost like it's a reading frame. That's DNA. It's a frame shift. If you shift the frame, and that's why like point deletions and point insertions, DNA is so, it's almost like too good. And it almost goes back to like if your system is too completely fleshed out, that's when you get difficulties in encountering something that hasn't been encountered. Because it's like if you shift the frame just one, not even like an entire frame shift, just by one codon, you get something completely different. Now, there are some redundancies in it where it's like, even if there is a point mutation or even if the frame does shift, there are enough redundancies that you still get the same thing. But one thing inserted, one thing deleted, one shift of the frame, it's completely different. And with the Yanni and Laurel, it's almost like, because this is the wave. That's a sound wave, right? I'll draw it. Why not? I have a pen. I had a pen. I'm not going to draw it. This is a sound wave. So if this is the part that you listen to, like let's say that's the Laurel. This is the Laurel. The Yanni is like here. So it's like up, down is the Laurel. Down, up is the Yanni. So you have to do like a half shift. You have to start at the bottom instead of the top to hear the other thing. Frame shift. Anyway, all right. I said Sagittarius too much. I'm about to go full everything I remember about DNA and transcription and translation and point mutations, insertions, deletions, and everything. Spontaneous mutagenesis. I'm not saying that's how it worked with that in particular, but I've like that's how I'm interpreting the energy of the Yanni Laurel conversation within the context of everything. And I think that's why like that's what kind of helped me hear like Yoral. And it's almost like I need to hear exactly how to frame shift this to get the Yanni, 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 Laurel, 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 Yanni. I want to listen to it now. Okay, I'll play a little bit of it. Oh, it's 9:30. I was up so late last night. And it wasn't even by choice. I mean, eventually it was by choice because I could have went to bed at whatever time. But we went to go pick up fast food, waiting almost an hour in the line. I was like, it was already late. Now it's past my bedtime. And then I got the food, so I had to eat it. I am glad. I am so glad that that was a concern for me. That was an issue. Hashtag Fata Morgana problems. I'm just playing. Wishes may bring problems such that you regret them better that though than to never get them. Goodbye. Oh no, this is not sponsored by Google. You can keep your ad. Laurel. Laurel. I hear Laurel. 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 Oh, I might have to do it again. I can't hear the Yanny now. Laurel. I gotta. Laurel. 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 Oh, almost had it. Laurel. I almost had it. I almost got into the Yanny. Almost. And then it went back to Laurel. Darn it. Anyway, you ate popcorn for dinner. Yeah, I got a box of popcorn down here. I bought a bunch of yakisoba noodles. You heard Yanny? He was like, I've never heard Yanny. I'm incapable of hearing Yanny. I thought those people were crazy. Oh my gosh, I heard Yanny. See, but I feel like that goes back to the energy. Was that was another aspect of the Two of Swords. That was the Two of Swords in the Mystical Medleys tarot. It was the space of like, there are things that we've already done. It's like supplementary, complementary healing, where it's like there are things that have actually already been healed. We just have to have the experience for us to know that it's been healed. You had to listen to it today to know that you can hear Yanny. There you go. There you go. That is your reward for you gave that to yourself. I am happy to just be the person who Googled it on YouTube and played the video. Maybe you're already walking on clouds, Eve. It's like Looney Tunes, right? When you're walking off the cliff and then you're like, oh. But it's like when Peter went out, stepped on the water, but instead of freaking out and falling into the water or just plummeting, you're like, oh, okay. And you just keep walking. Like, oh, I can walk on air. I can walk on water. What? Okay, cool. It's been over a year since you've eaten popcorn. You're hearing Yanny. Oh my gosh, Eve, who are you? Who are you? I love it. Thank you. I'm trimming. It's just gonna be this the last 2 minutes. That's gonna be the video. You heard Yanny. I heard Laurel that time. I almost heard a yeah, but it was just Laurel. And then I didn't want because it was a video. I didn't know like if something else was gonna start popping up, so I had to like That's why I was like, I'm not necessarily gonna like play it, but I will definitely, after I shut this down, I'm gonna try to find the Yanny, because all I heard was Laurel today. And maybe that's also a message. It's like, all right, hold your horses, slow down, bring it back, bring it back, bring it back. Or because I think I heard Yanny the first time and I couldn't hear Laurel. And then I had to fight to hear the Laurel. Or it's the, I don't know. And now I can only hear Laurel and I can't hear the Yanny. I don't know. We're all at different points in our journeys. That's why we take things as they resonate. Right? I am going to try to hear both, though. I am definitely going to listen to it again. So. All right. I got to go. It's been a lovely 3 hours. Thank you all for being here. I hope you, again, I really, really do hope you have a good whenever you see this, and that you're acting in alignment to make all that you wish to experience your reality. And like part of the reason why I say I hope you're acting in alignment to make all that you wish to experience your reality is because it felt like a missing piece. It's like choice is only half. Our free will is half of the gift of being human. Choice is half of the gift of being human. Limitation, believe it or not, is another half of the gift of being human. And then the last half is being able to experience things, being able to experience making different choices leading to different experiences, and being able to experience happiness and joy and levity after periods of darkness and despair and misery. And the real beauty comes when we get to do what is within our power and ability to direct ourselves more towards what it is that we wish to experience, and to experience more than we thought possible. And I think sometimes we do, like, yeah, it is important to have gratitude and to be grateful, but I don't know if it's necessarily to have so much gratitude that you don't want to experience anything more or anything else. Like, I think it's okay to want, it's okay to desire. Maybe there's a force that loves to blow your mind, and there's a force that loves to make that which you wish to experience made manifest. Just like there are probably forces that love to make people miserable or whatever, right? That's why it's like, our actions are the things that switch the tracks on the rail car. Our actions, our thoughts, like they all play a part, but the actions are also. Anyway, I'll see y'all later. Thank you for being here. Bye. I'm like saying the same thing over and over.